Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Maddie. For those of you that this is your first time tuning in, we are really excited to have you. And for those of you that have been with us before, welcome back. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. Now I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. Rusty Gaillard is a highly regarded executive coach working with growth companies to scale faster and smoother. Former worldwide director of finance at Apple, Rusty blends decades of operations experience with leadership principles to help executives be more bold, decisive, and action-oriented. Rusty is the author of best-selling book, Breaking the Code, and is a sought-after speaker and trainer. A graduate of Stanford Business School, he enjoys singing karaoke with his wife and running with his 16-year-old son. Thanks for being here today, and I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Maddie. I'm going to take you back to the year 2008. The iPhone was just launched the year before, and I just got a new job at Apple. I'm walking into my office for the very first day in my new role as the worldwide director of finance. I walk into the office and it's actually a beautiful setting. Out the window, there's redwood trees and the sun is coming, and I feel really good about where I am. I'm a little nervous, of course, in this new job, but I'm ready. I'm responsible for the global sales forecast for Apple. How much are we going to sell, including the iPhone, which was just announced? My last job before this was in operations. We were a major user of the forecast, so I know where all the problems are, and it's my job to fix them. I have a team that works for me. It's about 20 people that are all located here in Cupertino in California. And indirectly, there's 30 other people around the world. All of these people are assigned to a specific business unit. There's no one but me at the global level looking out at the forecast as a whole. I'm not on the job even a month when the leaders of these business units make a pitch to my boss to say the forecasters should work directly for them and not for me. I actually agree with this, and so I win that intellectual battle, but I lose the battle in power and politics. And like that, half of my team disappears. Honestly, I'm kind of disappointed. I feel a little bruised by this. Some of that pride of being a director and being responsible for this big team is taken away. And there's two big problems. Number one is I'm responsible for the global sales forecast, and now I have no forecasters who work for me. Number two, I'm also responsible for designing and building and launching a new tool to help do the forecast, and I have no one to work on that. So how do I solve these problems? It turns out I know the answer to that question. I will do it. I've always been that kind of person. I've always been the get it done kind of guy. From my days in school, early in my career, even keeping everyone happy in my family, my ability to get it done has always worked. So I get busy. And as a side benefit, I get really good at speed walking. I'm always late going from meeting to meeting, and so I'm walking quickly. And I might grab a minute here, a minute there to respond to an email, lunch at my desk if I'm not in a meeting, and I'm constantly late for dinner with my 2-year-old son, which pains me and causes tension at home. This is hard. I'm speed walking down the hall one day on my way to a meeting, late as usual, and I pass my boss's office, and I look in, and there's my boss sitting at his desk, calmly working. And I realize in a flash, I've seen this before. So I stop, I go over, I knock on the door, and I go in, I sit down, I say, how is it that you can just sit here and be working calmly? I've got back-to-back meetings all day. He looks at me and he says, Rusty, you know you're in charge of your calendar. And I'm a smart guy. Like, I get it. I know intellectually that I control my calendar, but in reality, my calendar controls me. So I say thank you to my boss and I get up and speed walk off to my next meeting. I'm a year into the job, and this project to develop and roll out a new forecasting tool has really ramped up. In fact, the CFO of Apple as a whole has taken notice of this project and is communicating it across the finance organization as an example of the way they're investing in new tools and resources to support the team. We're making progress, but there's still no one on my team working on this but me. But that's on top of the day-to-day forecasting work. It's a lot, but I'm good at project management. I'm strong technically, and I'm the director of finance. It's my job, so I can do it. And yet every time we test the system, we find more problems. We fix those problems and new problems come up. It's like that game of whack-a-mole where you can never solve all the problems at once, and the pressure is getting intense. My boss is pushing me to get it right. The teams around the world, all of these global teams that I work with, they're starting to have some doubts and hesitation. And there's some of that back channel politics, like the same thing that happened my first 2 weeks on the job when I lost half of my team right away. I'm under a lot of pressure, but this is what I'm good at. Keeping people happy, finding a solution, making progress. And so I take it on. And I become the problem solver, the designer, the tester, the communicator. I do it all, and it works. Everyone has signed off on the project. It's about mid-December now, and it happens to be a beautiful sunny day. I'm sitting in my office. There's sunshine coming through those redwood trees outside the window, and I'm looking forward to a break over the holidays and then this new project going live in January. As I'm sitting there at my desk, my phone rings and it's my boss. I pick it up expecting to hear some congratulations or some kind of recognition. And he says, I'm canceling the project. I'm a little confused by this initially. I said, well, what do you mean you're canceling the project? And he says, it's too risky. There's not enough support from the global team. The CFO has highlighted some of these risks as getting that kind of back channel nervousness that I described. And it's just safer at this point to cancel the project now than it is to go live and risk it failing afterwards. After we hang up, I sit down for a moment, and all I really want to do is leave and go home. But I have a full schedule that day. So I walk outside. I stand in the sun for a minute in that beautiful sunshine for 5 minutes just to compose myself, pull myself back together, and speed walk on to my next meeting. It takes 10 years for me to really understand what happened on that project, partly because I didn't want to look at it. It was too uncomfortable. This is the big opportunity, and it felt like a big failure. But also because I didn't see the impact of my decisions, the decisions that I made that led to this result. I was focused on what I was good at. I did what had always worked for me. But in this case, it didn't work because I took my eye off the thing that really needed to get done, which was the relationships and the politics that would have made the project successful. We're here today to talk about decision making. And this story is one example of decision making. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second while I get that up and running, because I want to walk you through a simple process for how to make better decisions. But we're going to make this a little bit interactive. So I want to start with a question, which is, how confident are you that you make good business decisions? So put 1 to 10, 1, not at all confident, 10, totally confident. Go ahead and put a number in the chat. And I'm going to ask you to do this a couple of times during this presentation because I want you to be reflecting and thinking about this information as well. So put a number in. How is your level of confidence about your ability to make good business decisions? Great. Seeing some good numbers coming here. 7, 8, 9, another 7, kind of good at the upper end of the scale. That's fantastic. And a 4, 8.57. I love it, Laura. You're very creative. So wherever you are on this scale, I also want to put out to you that you have absolutely made good decisions in your life. So I want you to just bring a decision like that to mind. Think about some decision that you've made that you feel good about. That could be a business decision. It could be starting your business. It could be a new product that you designed or launched or service. It could be a customer that you either brought on or let go. But I know that there are good business decisions that you have made. And so think about those, bring those to mind, and just remember that you know how to make good business decisions. You've got the capability. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at what gets in the way of those good business decisions so you can make them more and more consistently. So I've got 3 objectives that I want you to walk out at the end of the day with having met these 3 objectives. Number 1 is I want you to know what prevents good decisions, what gets in the way. Number 2, how to make better decisions. And number 3, I don't want you to just have this information. I want you to actually get an opportunity to practice this. So I want you to walk out at the end of the day having made a good decision that's going to support you in moving to the next step in your business and in your life. So as we're beginning this, take a moment right now to think of a decision that you are facing. Some kind of decision you're facing in your business. So it could be an investment. It could be a change in direction. It could be a new client that you want to pursue and you're deciding whether or how to pursue that client. It could be an employee decision you need to make. And it could be a decision around how you're fitting your work and your life together. Could be in any of those different spheres, but think about a decision that you're facing and bring that to mind so that it's something you can work with as we go through this material today. One last thing before we jump in, which is I want to give you just put the invitation out there to reach out and connect with me. I know some of you are going to be here for the whole presentation. I hope you are, because we've got a whole hour of good material planned. But if you have to drop off early, my website information is right at the bottom of the slides. You're welcome to just plug that in, send a connection request to me, reach out, and let's connect. I'm happy to talk through this with you. All right, so decisions. Let's just start with a question. Again, I'm going to ask you to put a number in the chat. How many decisions do you believe you make on a daily basis? So take a guess. How many decisions do you make on a daily basis? And I'm going to just give you a little bit of guidance here. It's a big number. This is not the, what am I going to eat? But it's what am I going to eat? How long am I going to keep working on this thing that I'm working on? What am I going to wear today? Hundreds, 900. Yeah, some big numbers. But this is the whole range of decisions you make on a daily basis. Laura kind of stretched out there to 10,000. The number that I've seen researched, 35,000 decisions on a daily basis. This is anywhere from like, hey, I'm sitting here listening to this presentation and a text message just came in on my phone. Am I going to stop and look at that text message, or am I going to stay engaged in this presentation? All of these things are decisions. Now, of those decisions you make on a daily basis, what percentage of them do you make without thinking about them? Put a number in the chat. What percentage of 35,000, what percentage of those do you make without even thinking about them? They're just habitual, they're automatic, they're subconscious, they're just something that you just, boom, you make a decision and you go with it. Seeing some big numbers, I'm going to throw out a gold star to Maggie, who got 95%, and that is absolutely the number. 95% of the decisions you make on a daily basis are automatic. The book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman talks about this. So Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, and he talks about System 1 and System 2 for how we think and make decisions. And this is a concept that he did not invent. It's actually something that came out of the brain science research. But System 1 is your intuitive, instinctive decision-making ability. These are the things that happen quickly, automatically, without any time or energy or effort. Think about how you get dressed. Think about driving a car, riding a bike, all these things that happen to you for you automatically. That's System 1. It's unconscious and it's fast. System 2 thinking is your rational thought process. It takes effort, it's slow, and fundamentally your brain is lazy, because this System 2 thinking takes a lot of energy. It takes time and energy to think through something. And so what your brain is really good at is moving it from System 2 to System 1. That's what it means to learn how to drive a car. I just got to watch that process with my son, who's 16 in the past year, learn how to drive a car, where everything he did, he had to think through it. How do I do this? And over time, as he practiced and practiced, it became more and more automatic. And that's system one thinking. We've already talked about the split, 95% versus 5%. That is a huge, huge difference. Now, Daniel Kahneman talks about it as system one and system two. It's a little bit more technical. Having spent 14 years working at Apple, I liked it to actually make the comparison to technology. In technology, you've got a phone, you've got the hardware right here. It's the physical device that you've got. Then you have an operating system, which is usually an Apple or Android. And then you have apps. And the reason you have the phone is for the apps. That's what you care about. You want to make calls, you want to use your calendar, you want to be able to connect on social media, send messages. These are all the things, that's the real value you get from your phone. That's what you want it for. The thing is, the operating system is what controls whether or not you can access the full capability of the phone. Your phone is amazing. This is like we carry this little mini computer in our pocket. It's amazing. But you've all had the experience of putting a new app in, and that little message comes up that says, do you want to give this app permission to use your location, to use the camera, to access your contacts? The operating system is what determines that. The phone has these capabilities, but whether or not the app can use them or not is determined by the operating system. That's very simply how the technology works, but the same thing works for you in your internal operating system. So if you think about that for a moment, you've got an internal operating system. There's you, that's the hardware in this example, like you and your amazing capabilities and all the things that you can do, the time and energy and creativity and your interests and desires, all of the things, you've got amazing abilities. And then you have apps that you want to install in your life. This is growth in your business, income, revenue in your business. This is your calendar, your time, how much time and free time you have to do the things you want to do. It's your relationships, it's your health, it's your happiness. All of these things are the apps. And we all want great apps in our life, right? It's like, hey, I want more free time. I want to install the app for more free time. Well, the operating system, once again, is what determines whether or not you get permission for that or whether you get the big X and it gets rejected. Just like on your phone, you've got this internal operating system, which determines whether or not that thing that you want is possible or not. Now, think for a moment about how often the operating system is updated on your phone. Anybody have any guesses of how often that happens? Put it in the chat if you have a guess on how often your phone updates the operating system. Any guesses for you guys? Go ahead and stick a number in the chat on how frequently that update on your phone happens. While letting your fingers warm up here, the corollary to that is to think about how often you update your own operating system. If it's your operating system that determines what you can do, how much of your own capability you have access to, then the question is, how often does that get updated? And when you update it, are you doing it deliberately? For your phone, there's a whole team of engineers who have a specific goal in mind when they make an update to the operating system. But for you, how often do you update it? Considering that operating system guides 95% of the decisions you make on a daily basis, this matters. Now, what I've noticed in many conversations with hundreds of people is ambitious, smart, high-achieving people tend to have some very similar elements to their operating system. They tend almost like they've been programmed. And some of those elements look like this. Like, hey, you need to get it all done. Don't drop the ball. Keep everything moving at the same time. Do it all right. Don't make any mistakes. And by the way, while you're doing it, be the best. Do what it takes to get it done. If any part of that resonates with you, put a yes in the chat. And just to acknowledge that there's some part of this in your operating system that is about, it's been programmed into you. Again, there's a question of, We don't know exactly where that comes from. It wasn't deliberately programmed in, but it's some combination of our upbringing, our family, our culture, our society, our education system. There's a lot of programming out there that comes into us and influences our operating system. And so this is about paying attention, starting to learn that, recognize where it comes from. Because if this is your operating system, it leads to a pretty predictable place. I've talked to so many people who feel like this, like overwhelmed, buried. There's never enough time. There's always more to do, and you just can't keep up. So that's a pretty common place that a lot of people find themselves in. Now, if you take this idea of, I'm going to just power through and I'm going to get it done and see how fast I can go and how far I can go, we're going to put that approach to the test. And we're going to put that approach to the test in what I call the numbers game. So this is a very simple exercise, and you're going to all participate in this. So get ready. This is a challenge. You're going to have 1 minute to do it. In just a second, I'm going to put a picture up on the screen that has the numbers from 1 to 50 listed on the page. Your goal in 1 minute is to get as far as you can, finding the numbers in order. So first you find number 1, then you find number 2, then you find number 3, and so on. You have to go in order, starting with 1, in order as far as you can get in a minute. And so I'm going to give you a minute to go. Here come the numbers. Get ready, set, go. Ten more seconds. All right, put in the chat, how far did you get? What was the highest number that you were able to find in that time? All right, 31 seems to be an outlier. Lots in the kind of like the high teens, 27, 20. All right, good. We got a range of things here. Now, part of this is what number you were able to get to. Great, that's fine. But notice for a moment what your thought process was in this exercise. Did you take this approach competitively? Like, hey, I'm good at this. I'm good at numbers. I'm going to get the highest number. I'm going to be faster than anybody else. Did you take the other extreme, which is, oh, I'm no good at this at all, and I'm not even going to try because other people are going to be way better at this? Did you take somewhere in the middle, like, oh, this is stupid. What does this have to do with decision making? I don't really care about this exercise. Just notice, what was your internal dialogue about this exercise? I know for me, the first time I took it, I was the first one. I was I'm going to go, I'm going to crush this thing. I'm going to be the best person in the room, right? Some of that high achiever self-talk that came up. So notice that in yourself, what kind of self-talk you had. And part of that can be just reflecting, is that useful for you? Does that help you perform better? Does that help you be more creative? Because the answer to this problem, actually, this numbers challenge, is not just a brute force challenge. There's actually a little more to it. And if you're creative and resourceful and insightful, you're going to see it. All right. I'm going to reveal a little bit of information to you to help change the way you see this exercise. Here's the information. If you take the numbers that were on the screen and you divide the screen into 4 parts, there's actually a pattern to where the numbers appear. The number 1 is in the top left. Number 2 is in the top right, then bottom right. 4 is in the bottom left. 5 is in the top left. They go in a circle like that, starting in the top left. They go around clockwise. So now that you know that information, let's continue to have fun. Thank you, Kathy, and do your best. But I'm going to give you another round, another 1 minute to start with the number 1, go sequentially, and see how far you can get this time. All right, here we go. 10 more seconds. All right. How did you do? So rather than put your score in this time, put a plus sign and then how much your score increased. So if you had 15 last time, you got to 20 this time, put +5 in the score. So I get it, getting you to do a little bit. Holy cow, Maggie, +20. I'm getting you to do a little math here. So a lot of you, wow, way, way higher, 2017, 2020, 2023, amazing. So notice this. If your programming is just to work hard, to go as fast as you can, to just plow ahead, that's not always going to be the most productive, most effective way of approaching a problem. Sometimes if you shift your awareness, if you see things differently, if you look for a pattern and a different way of approaching a problem, you can be more effective. Sometimes the pattern is not obvious. It wasn't obvious for most of us in this, although I think one person, I think it was Sophia, discovered the pattern. Good for you, good observing. But if you pay attention and slow down, you're more likely, you can actually be more successful. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, and because we're at this point of saying what prevents good decisions. We're wrapping that up. And so I want you to put in the chat, what is your takeaway? What is your takeaway from this first chunk of the presentation about what prevents good decisions? The way you work, your sense of your coding, your operating system. What is a takeaway that you have from this first portion of this presentation? Something that you learned, maybe an aha or an insight that you got, maybe something you recognized about yourself and your habitual way of thinking. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Put in just a simple takeaway that you're going to take away from this first piece about what gets in your way of making good decisions. Yeah. Observing before rushing to act, that's great. Putting yourself under pressure. Stress is a great way to make bad decisions. Because when you're stressed, and by the way, this has been chemically studied and biologically studied in your brain, your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of your brain, the rational, logical thinking part, gets shut down when you're stressed. That is a natural biological response. So stress is a great way to not make good decisions. Confidence. Confidence makes a big difference in your ability to do things. Absolutely. Great observations. So I know we have more than 3 of you here. So even if you haven't put something in the chat, take a note for yourself. What gets in your way? So let's move on then to the next section, which is how to make better decisions. All right. Now, rather than just talk about making better decisions, I kind of like to take it a little bit step beyond that, have a little bit of fun here, but let's make super decisions. In part because we want to break through our programming. We want to break through that operating system that our habitual way of thinking, that 95% of our decisions that made in the same way. So we're going to step outside of that. And this is a way of stepping outside of that to make better decisions. So super decisions, there are 3 elements to it. And they all start with the letter S. The first one is to have space, to create space for yourself. And when I mean space, I mean both physical space, but also energetic space. So first, let's talk about physical space. Now, your brain responds to the environment that you are in. You will think differently when you're in your desk at work compared to when you're sitting at the table with your family, compared to when you're on a walk outside in nature. Your physical environment impacts your physiology and it impacts the way you think. So when I talk about creating space, physically change your space. Take yourself out of the situation where the decision is required and being made and go find a different location that's going to help change your mindset and change your energy. There's actually a great article written on Medium by former President Barack Obama about making decisions. And this is not about his politics, but it's about his way of making decisions. And he talked about stepping away from the intense place that he was. And sometimes he would go have dinner with his family or step outside. And it was in that stepping away that all the pieces came together and the decision became more clear. That is about creating physical space for yourself. The other piece is about changing your energy, creating some energetic space for you. So this gets back to the comment that was in the chat here about when you put yourself under pressure and you feel stress, that's not the best way to make a decision. It's not the best energetic place to make a decision. So create some energetic space for yourself. Change your energy. You can stand up, you can move. Physical movement is a great way to do this. And you can relieve some of the time pressure. Just give yourself a little bit of break. Say, well, if I have enough time to think about this and just let some of that time pressure go, can that help you to give yourself a little bit of energetic space to clear your mind? So that's the first piece, space, physical, energetic space. The second S is simplicity. Simplicity is that we tend to overcomplicate our decisions. We tend to think there's about all of these different factors. Let me give you an example. One of my clients, his name is Charlie, we'll call him Charlie, worked at a small company of about 20 people. And one of the problems this company faced was managing vacation time, because they were inconsistent on who took vacation and how much they took and when they took it. And sometimes multiple people would take vacation at the same time, which created problems for the company because they couldn't cover while multiple people were out. So what they did is they went through a process to come up with a policy on vacation. This was led by one of Charlie's peers, and it's turned out to be a somewhat contentious process among the leadership team. There was a lot of debate and disagreement, and it took over a month to settle on a policy, but they finally did. They settled on a policy. They roll out the policy to the team, and the next week, one of Charlie's employees comes to him and says, Charlie, I've got this vacation planned, but it conflicts with the new policy. Can I go? Faced with that decision, Charlie had his gut instinct about what he believed was right, but he also had all of these other factors to consider. We just went through this long, contentious process. My peer led this effort, and if I go against my peer and the policy we adopted, is that going to look bad? But the CEO of the company had a different perspective, and I don't want to upset her. How do I navigate this whole political environment to make a decision that's both right for the person, but also works politically? Well, that gets really complicated. So in our conversation, I said, Charlie, how can you simplify this? How can you set aside all of the noise, all of these extra considerations about what are they going to think and what are they going to do? And what's the reaction from all the people around me going to be? Simplify that part. Strip away what other people are going to say or do, and just focus on what do you believe is the right decision. That is what simplicity is all about, boiling it down to what you believe is the right decision. So that's the second S, simplicity. The third S is success. Because it's so easy to think about, if I make this decision, what are all the things that are going to go wrong? Instead of thinking, if I make this decision, what are all the ways that can go right? And if you make a decision coming from the place of assuming that it's going to go well and believing that it's going to go well, that's going to make your decision easier, faster, and you'll be much more effective in making a decision. So space, create some space, physical and energetic space for yourself. Make it simple. Don't worry about what all the other people are going to think. And then come from a place of success, not focused on how it's going to go wrong, but focus instead on how it could go right. So I'm going to ask you again to put in the chat, which one of these three S's to you is the biggest change from how you normally make decisions? Or where do you see the biggest opportunity for yourself to apply one of these three S's? Just pick one to you that seems like it could make a difference for you. If you applied space, simplicity, or success, how can that help you? Excellent. Excellent. Interesting. And this is great, right? There's no one answer, right? Everyone's got a different perspective about what's going to be most helpful for them. Fantastic. So here, I want to share with you one more model that kind of describes a little bit how this works. And this is a drift and shift model. So let's just assume that you start this process calm, confident, collected. You're at your best, right? You're ready. You're making good decisions. You're operating well. Everything is great. You feel good. You feel confident. Inevitably, something is going to happen. This could be a problem with an employee, a problem with a client, a problem at home. It could be the environment or the economy. Anything could happen, right? But something happens in life and we get pulled out of that calm and confident and collected place. This happens to all of us. This is just life, right? Things happen. The question is, what happens when something happens? And most of us drift. And when we drift out of that place of being calm, confident, and collected. So inside the box, there's a lot of these coping behaviors that I've listed, and I could list 2 or 3 times as many because there's just hundreds of them out there. But these are ways that we deal with the discomfort of something happening that we don't like. We can blame someone, we can hide someone, we can eat, we can go on Facebook, we can scroll social media, we can do email instead of doing the thing that's important. We can whine and complain to our spouse or to our friend. There's all sorts of behaviors we can take, and take a look through that list, see if something in there is like, oh yeah, that's what I tend to do when things get uncomfortable, because that's a great awareness for yourself. This part of the process, drifting off of our best place, that happens to everybody. That is just humanity. The question is, how long will you be in that place when you drift off course? How long will you stay there? The answer comes back to making a shift. And once you recognize that you've drifted, that gives you opportunity to make a shift. You can change your environment, change your perspective, change your physiology. And this, by the way, is very much what these 3 S's are about. Right? We talked about creating space for yourself, physical space, changing your environment, and energetic space. That can be changing your physiology, stand up, move around, change your energy. We talked about making it simple, which is a perspective shift, and thinking about it, about how it can be successful. That's also a perspective shift. And it's when you make that shift that you go back to this place of being calm, confident, and collected. Now, this may be a stupid question, but it's worth asking. Where do you make better decisions? When you're calm, confident, and collected? Or when you've drifted and you're intellectualizing or emailing or Facebooking or eating or whining or sarcastic? We all know the answer to that, right? We make better decisions when we're calm, confident, and collected. And that's what those 3 S's do of super decisions. They bring you back to that best place of yourself where you can make good decisions. So going back to our objectives, that ticks off the second objective, how to make better decisions by being in the best place, by giving yourself space, simplifying the decision, and assuming that it's going to be successful. So now we're gonna go on to the last part, which is, this is great. This is a bunch of information. I hope that you've taken something from this that you can apply, but I want you to now have the practice in applying it. Because it's great to have information, but it's a question of how do you implement that information? That's what makes the difference. So I'm going to walk you through a very simple exercise that starts with a challenge or an opportunity that you face. I asked you at the beginning of this presentation to think about one of those decisions you had to make. This could be a challenge or opportunity, a decision around that challenge or opportunity, but bring something to mind now. This could be about your business. This could be a family decision or a personal decision. Or could be something at the intersection of your business and your personal life. That's about how are you managing your time and how are you allocating balance between your work life and your personal life. So it can be in any one of those spheres, but pick a challenge or an opportunity that you face. And I'm going to walk you through a simple process that helps to connect with some of the exercise and some of the principles that we've just been working on. Okay. We're going to start by describing from your default perspective, right? So this is if you've drifted or if you're challenged by this, but like, how would you normally talk about this decision or this challenge? It might be hard. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm stressed, those kinds of things. So as you describe this, and I'm going to actually invite you to, if you're in a place where you can do this, to actually speak this out loud. And as you do that, take your right hand and just, form your right hand into a grip, a closed grip, not tight, but just like you're holding this experience, you're holding this perspective, almost like it's a physical thing. Your default perspective, your operating system way of looking at this. And just hold that. And I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to describe out loud if you're in a place where you can do that. And if you can't do it out loud, just speak to yourself mentally in your head, but actually speak it as if you're talking. Don't just kind of allow your mind to wander, but speak it as if you're talking and describe this situation. Making, again, with your right hand kind of in a gentle closed position, like you're holding this perspective. And take 30 seconds now to describe this situation or challenge that you're facing. Okay, now just take a deep breath. And you can let go of that perspective for a moment, because we're going to switch gears. Now I invite you to take your left hand, and again, you're going to hold a new perspective in your left hand. And this new perspective is going to be your best self perspective. This is that part of you that is confident, that is grounded, that's calm, collected, like you have space. You're looking at this from a simple perspective, what you want and you believe is right. You were taking it from a place of success, assuming that it's going to go well. So hold your left hand and just hold that perspective gently in your left hand. And once again, I'm going to invite you to speak out loud this perspective on the challenge. And also, as you're talking about this, you can describe the attributes that you bring to this, your strengths, your abilities, your perspective, your ability to navigate challenging situations. Bring your own capabilities and strengths into this as you're describing the situation. And now, again, take 1 minute this time to describe this, holding this perspective with your left hand out loud if you're able to, or in your head. Okay, so now take a deep breath, and you can release that perspective. Now we're going to go to the next step. And this next step is to recognize that you can hold both of these perspectives at the same time. So I invite you first to just take your right hand again that holds that default perspective that's often a little more pessimistic, and bring that right hand and just place it over your heart. And take a deep breath and just allow yourself to bring some kindness and gentleness from your heart to that perspective, recognizing that everybody has doubts and fears and challenges in life, and that you could relate to that with the sense of kindness and gentleness. And just bring that to yourself, much like you would do to a loved one, a child, a friend, if they came to you with a challenge, that you would receive them with some warmth and kindness, and give that same warmth and kindness to yourself. And now take your left hand and place it over your right hand. And your left hand again is representing this best self perspective, this part of you that has resources, that is capable, that is strong. And just take a deep breath into this recognition that you and your heart and your body, your soul, you as a person, you can have both of these perspectives. That you can have the fears and uncertainties and the strengths at the same time. and recognize that you are the total sum of this, and you can choose which one to emphasize. And so with a deep breath now, I just invite you to take a deep breath, relax your hands, and then just ponder this question. What is an action that you can take that moves you forward towards addressing this challenge or this opportunity that you face? What's a decision you can make that moves you forward? So ponder that for a moment and see what speaks to you, recognizing that you've got all of this within you, both the fears and uncertainties, but the strengths and the resources and the capabilities and the ideas and the creativity to address this challenge and make a good decision. Now write your action down. What decision have you come to? Write it down. You can put it in the chat if you like, but what most important is that you write it down for yourself. What decision that you make and what action can you take that will move you forward? I want to share a couple of quotes with you. One is by Tony Robbins, who says, "A real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken a new action. If there's no action, you haven't truly decided." Another quote from one of my mentors, Mary Morrissey, she says, "Inspiration without action is merely entertainment." So if you've got an action or a decision that you've come to, and you've written down a date by when you will take that action, I invite you to write in the chat the words, "I'm in," just as a public commitment to others of the commitment you just made to yourself to take action towards something that matters to you, to make a decision and take an action. So I just invite you to put those simple words in the chat, "I'm in." You don't have to reveal what your decision is or your date, but you've got those things written. You've made a decision and a commitment to yourself to take action. Fantastic. And once again, I want to put the invitation out there. If there's any one of you who's listening who is stuck on this and not sure how to work through this or not sure what action to take, just go to my website. There's a link to contact me there. I'm happy to set up time and walk through this with you and help you get to that clarity so you know the action that you can take to move forward. So that covers the 3 items that we set out to talk about here. What prevents good decision, how to make a better decision, and actually to practice it, to put it into practice. As we're wrapping up, I want to share with you a story of one of my clients, and we're going to call him Adam. Adam lived in St. Petersburg, Florida, and it's 2021, and he's driving from work on the way to a work dinner. It's a beautiful day outside. The sun is setting. There's a light ocean breeze in the trees, but Adam doesn't see any of that because he's focused. He's had one of those days. We all know what those days are. And he's catching up on some calls that he didn't get to during the day. One of the calls he makes is to me to reschedule the coaching call that we had for that evening. He feels a little guilty because it's the second time that he's rescheduled it, but at least he's not missing time with the kids. They're not with him tonight. But, he runs 2 businesses. He's active in the city. He has a young family, and it's hard to get it all done. If you rewind 3 months just before I met Adam for the first time, he looked like he was on top of the world from the outside. He looks composed, thoughtful, accomplished, but on the inside, he has a lot of self-doubt. Despite his success, he always wants to be behind the scenes, celebrating other people. Adam has been an entrepreneur on his own since age 19. He's used to getting things done, but he's busy all the time. He says yes too much. He helps other people before himself. And as he sits on the couch at night, when the kids are finally in bed, he's both exhausted and guilty for all the things he didn't get done. He longs for the day he'll get caught up enough to get some time off. This changes for Adam the day he meets the former CEO of Procter & Gamble. They're working together on a project for the city. And face to face with a man who had run one of the largest companies in the world, Adam realized 2 things. First, there's nothing magical about the CEO. He's just another person. And second, Adam has been selling himself short. He spent years operating behind the scenes, enabling others, staying out of the limelight. In that moment, he's ready to expand his view of what's possible. He saw a bigger version of himself, his business, and the impact he could have, and he wanted to pursue it. He just didn't know how. So that's when he called me. Adam had never had a coach, a mentor, or an advisor. He didn't know how any of that worked, but he saw something new that was possible and he wanted to get there. So he had the courage to say yes, to make a decision and invest in himself to achieve his goals. Step one is to get totally clear on what success looks like for him. Adam loves creating something from nothing. It's his zone of genius. It's what he's best at. But he's spending all his time in the minutia of running the business. He's competent at that, but he doesn't love it. He knows his biggest asset is his time and his energy, and he's investing it in the wrong place. So he starts making decisions. Some decisions are easy, like offloading finance work that he's been doing to someone else. Some are more challenging, like finally deciding to let go of an employee after months of being on the fence. And some decisions just have to get made. One of Adam's former employees came back a year after he had left the company, asking for more money. This is uncomfortable for Adam. He likes the person. They had a good relationship. And he's disappointed that this person has come back trying to extract more money. Adam doesn't feel any commitment or obligation, either legally or morally, to this person to give him more money. But he's uncomfortable with the situation as a whole, and he doesn't want to damage a long-term relationship. As we talk through this, he realizes how much energy it takes to leave the issue unresolved. So he makes it simple. No obligation, no money. He makes the decision, and a week later, the issue is closed. Now, these may seem like normal decisions, but the change was Adam was proactive. He was faster, and he was focused on making decisions to create success on his terms. He offloaded operational work so he could be more creative. He guarded his energy for the things that he was best at and that mattered to him. He took time off, and he started to become more visible for his company and the city. And these are all great, but most importantly, Adam felt differently. He felt energized and enthusiastic. He enjoyed his work again. And because he was in his zone of genius, he was creating more, and he was creating better opportunities for the company. You can make better decisions too. You can be more consistently in your zone of genius. You can increase your impact on your business and the people around you. You have absolutely everything you need to step out of your old operating system and step into a new vision and picture of success on your terms. And it all starts with a decision. Leave you with this quote from Napoleon Hill that the value of decisions depends upon the courage you have to make them. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being here. Appreciate you all, and hope you have a wonderful day. And feel free to do we have a minute? We do. We have a couple minutes. So if anyone has questions, stick them in the chat. We actually do have a Q&A section, but just go ahead and put your question in the chat if you have a question or something that you would like to add. By the way, on my last slide here, I do have my email. So if you want to just drop me an email as well, you're welcome to do that. And the QR code will take you to my website. So you're welcome to scan that and hop over there and connect with me there as well.
Perfect. While we're waiting to see if any questions come in, I just want to thank you for sharing. My notebook I wrote in pink, but it's completely full of notes, and especially I am a new time mom, and decision fatigue is something that I am really experiencing. And so I had just a lot of little notes and tips and tricks to kind of help me out in all areas of life. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into these. I haven't seen any questions come through on the
Nope.
chat yet. So we'll give everyone just one more minute to kind of send them through. But if not, I thank everyone for joining us today. And until next time, and please look at our YouTube page and also our upcoming events for fun activities that you can look into and have help with your dream pursuit. Thank you, everyone. I didn't see any questions come through, so we will let you all go. Enjoy a few moments back before your next meeting, but have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Maddie.